So welcome members to this meeting of the Cabinet, to those who are in the public gallery at the rear of the room, and for those who are watching on the live stream or listening online. Before we begin, in the event of the evacuation alarm sounding, everyone should vacate the building to the nearest exit and proceed directly to the assembly point. Do we have any apologies for absence? Well, I know we do. So if you could give those, please, Pippa. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so we have Councillor Fitzgerald and Councillor Steve Allen who've given their apologies, as well as Councillor Jackie Allen and Councillor Ayres. From officers as well, we have apologies from Matt Gladstone, Rochelle Tapping and Jyoti Attry, with Adesa and Emmeline as substitutes.
Thank you very much. And also, it's our first Cabinet meeting with our new member of the officer team, John. Very much a good welcome to you today. And I know it's been a time waiting for you to arrive. And Peter, it's very good to see you here today. So we've got item 3 on the agenda. Sorry, item 2 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest for the business today? That's no hand shown. Thank you very much. Item 3, the minutes of the meetings that are held on the 7th of November 2022, which was the Shareholder Cabinet Committee, and on the 19th of June 2023, which was the Cabinet meeting. For those members that were present, are we agreed that they are true and accurate record of those two meetings? I take that as a assent. Yes, thank you, Councillor Suresti. So yes, those are agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Pippa, are there any petitions to Cabinet today?
No, none have been received, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 5, the business for today, the strategic decisions. Item 5 is the new all-age carers strategy, which appears on pages 19 to 68 of the agenda pack. Councillor Tyler, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My first meeting of this kind, so if I got a bit wrong, please forgive me. The new all-age carer strategy continues to be a joint strategy between Peterborough City Council and Cambridgeshire County Council. It encompasses all carers, including adult carers, parent carers and young carers. In developing this new strategy, importance has been placed on the voices of those with lived experience. Their input has helped shape the new strategy and inform the key priorities and strategic intentions. The new strategy aims to build on the impacts and achievements of the previous one, alongside identifying future areas of improvement and the approach to implementing these.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tyler. And we have Director Stephen Taylor and Lisa Sparks here to answer to this particular item. Lisa, welcome to the Cabinet meeting today. Are there any questions from members? Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to young carers and support groups, I know from experience that schools often have support groups for young carers. When working with partners to deliver this strategy, is this something that will be or can be explored, as I think it will be really useful? And it may already be planned, but if not, it may be worth sending the strategy to schools so they can share it with those respective groups.
So obviously part of the offer that we have Centre 33 who are essentially there to support young carers and young adult carers. I don't know if they or what extent they do work in schools at the moment, but we can certainly suggest that that strategy shared through some of the education communication pathways.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tyler, I think you had a comment to make on this. Would you like to make that now?
Yes, one of the things that I was thinking about was, I've forgotten now. Is there a contemporaneous and GDPR compliant email list so that carers can receive the very latest news and information? I've checked on the website and a lot of the information is out of date, and I'm just wondering how people are getting their information.
So we've acknowledged that actually our web pages are not brilliant for carers, and that's something we're going to look at, but the intention is to actually redevelop those pages with carers, with people with experience of caring, so we can make sure that the information we're putting out there is actually what they want and is going to be of most use to them.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ray, you had a comment.
Thank you. You mentioned Centre 33 as being one of the providers for the young carers side of things, and I know Caring Together is an organisation we work with who deal with the adult carers. What do we kind of encourage between our service providers in terms of those that are the young adults, those that are moving from one service to another, that potentially have links with other carers within one service, they're now moving on to an adult provision, and potentially going to lose that? How do we try and encourage that these providers do work together? Because while they've got similar aims, obviously they are separate entities on their own, but for the benefit of the carers, I think it's really important that we do get those working together and talking to each other for their benefit.
So we know that there are referrals between the different services, but that's certainly something that we can explore when we go out to re-tender those services in the future, to maybe make that more specific around the need to work together and the links between the two.
Brilliant, thank you.
Marvellous. Technology is beginning to fail us. You might
My
need to
mic
pull your
doesn't want to
battery out and
turn
put it
off.
back in again.
Yeah.
I think that might be the answer. But, thanks. Councillor Moyo, you had a question.
Thank you, Chair. I very much welcome the work of the new strategy, and this is quite a poignant subject to discuss today, because my mother's unwell, and I think soon I'll probably fall under the category of a carer, being her only next of kin. So I was just interested to find out, particularly pertaining to clause 5.2, how were you able to identify the large number of previously hidden carers? Is this work still being done? And finally, how do you assess the sort of mental, physical, financial sort of health of a specific carer in order to be able to advise them of the appropriate help and support that they require?
So in terms of the hidden carers, there was a targeted piece of work done to just try to understand the numbers. So that's something we now need to build on, because it was a one-off piece of work. And a lot of those carers are now linked into services. In terms of the assessment, there is an assessment process, and there's also something called Carers Conversations. Much of that would be done through organisations like Caring Together on our behalf. I don't have details of what's within that assessment, but I can find out if you'd like to know.
That would be really useful, thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Sorresti, you had a question.
Thank you, Chair. I know the only age, if you like, that I could find in the report was when referring to 18-year-olds. I think we all know that there are lots of carers that are a lot younger than 18. Have you taken that into consideration? I know it says all age, but what does that mean?
Yeah, apologies, I'm not sure why it only says under 18s in the actual report, but certainly
That's probably because the legislation says that.
Possibly because the person who wrote it thought it was coming to an adults forum rather than joint. But yeah, so the strategy does cover both, and the recommissioned services will cover both age groups. They'll be looking at what young carers need and what adult carers need.
Yeah, please do.
And what do you mean by young carers? I mean, you know, is a 10-year-old a young carer? Well, what is a young carer?
Yeah, so any age under 18 who's involved in some element of caring for a close family member. So that could be as young as 10 or 12, up to 18 years old is when obviously then switching to adults. But yeah, so it is a range of ages, and those carers will be doing different amounts of caring, but yeah, potentially we will have some as old, as young even as sort of 8 or 9 who are doing something to assist a parent at home.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Any more questions of Cabinet members and advisors? No? Lisa, thank you very much for the report. I didn't realise I'm a carer. I had no idea because I deal with my mother's financial affairs, and that was the first time actually I am a carer, which is quite interesting. I'm just wondering how well other people know that, and it's good to see that you're trying to reach out to the hidden carers to make sure that they do identify that they are carers themselves and potentially could qualify for carers allowance and all of that. So that's very good to see. So if we go to the recommendations on page 19, it's recommended that the Cabinet approves and adopts the new carers strategy. Members, are we agreed? Agreed. Thank you. That one is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Shall we now move on to item 6, the Peterborough Local Plan, the Issues and Options Consultation Document. That's on pages 69 to 136 of the agenda pack, and the Director and thank you for coming. And to introduce, that will be Councillor Seresti. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Some of you will recall that last January, full council approved the timetable to produce a new local plan for our city. Not just the city, all the bits. This included the first stage of public consultation, should be in July. The local plan issues and options consultation document presented before today as a result of that decision. The issues and options consultation document is based around a questionnaire that looks at different topics and themes and discusses the various options available. The document sets out a simple explanation of what the emerging local plan can and cannot achieve. This is the first opportunity for comments on the emerging local plan, and we encourage as many people as possible to get involved and let us know to help inform the future of growth in Peterborough. At this early stage in the process, no decisions have been made for the plan, and the options consultation document does not include any draft policy wording, nor does it include any sites for future development. It is, however, a very important part of the process to make sure everyone has a chance to have their say, and we would encourage everyone to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Seresti. And Gemma, I'm glad to see you're here ready to respond to any questions that members may have. Members, are there any questions? Councillor Tyler, I think you had your hand up first.
Sorry, David. Yeah, hi, Gemma. In Councillor Seresti's opening, in the final paragraph, it states it is, however, a very important part of the process to make sure everyone has a chance to have their say. As the city grows, so too do the number of disabled and older people. How will we best ensure that the voices of our most vulnerable citizens are heard and, more importantly, listened to?
So we're going to launch the consultation towards the end of July, and because this is the very first stage and we want as many people as possible to get involved, we've prepared the issues and options document, which is based around a questionnaire, but that is still sort of a fairly lengthy document. So we've also prepared a summary document as well, that will be online, and there's more interactive for people to go in and see the questions. We're preparing a social media video to go out and to show people what the key issues are and what the priorities are, and try and get them to answer at least just the final question. There are a number of requirements about when we consult and different groups and who we have to consult with, and hard to reach groups, that's part of it. So we're going to do all we can as part of our campaign to spread the message and get as many people as we can involved throughout the process. And I think it's important at this early stage so people are aware.
Thank you very much. Councillor Over.
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm not working. Thank you.
Things I do.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd do without you. Right. Gemma, we know each other from years and years ago. Can you assure me that the local neighbourhood plans will be taken into serious consideration? And secondly, if local people don't want or don't like a number of the proposals, will they actually be listened to?
Where's it looking at? So that is part of the process. The local plan has to comply with the MAID. They're called MAID neighbourhood plans, and vice versa. So when you're preparing a neighbourhood plan, you have to comply with what's in the local plan. We will go through the local plan through 3 stages of public consultation at the moment, which is use what they want to see and how the plan should develop. And then it's due next summer. We'll consult on a draft version. And people can put their comments in on the policies or the sites. And we will take into account all those comments and review the plan and prepare what's known as a submission version. The submission version then comes back it has to go to full council for approval, because that's the version of the plan to be adopted. We can then consult on that, and everyone can put their comments in again. But at that stage, it's then sort of almost out of the hands of the council. We have to submit the document to central government, who appoint an independent planning inspector, and the inspector will then hold a public examination. So if there's any outstanding objections or issues, people have submitted comments, they go to the planning inspector, and they can put those comments to the inspector at the hearings, and the inspector is the one that goes through and assesses those issues. So people's comments are listened to all the process.
Will remain the same, that the local plan will always trump any neighbourhood plan?
Well, when a plan is adopted, both the local plan and the neighbourhood plan have the same weight, but where there is any conflict between them, so where there's differences, the one that's been adopted, that's the earliest, the one that's the newest version, is the one that will then hold more weight, so if there's any conflict. Have been adopted. As I sort of explained, we're trying to do a bit more of particularly for this earlier stage, a bit more of a campaign around consultation to engage possible, and because we want to try and this. Takes place over the summer when the schools are closed for summer holidays, but we are sending out information to different schools and packs and things that they can look at when they return in September. There's a couple of weeks before the consultation ends then as well. But as I said, there's certain regulations we've got to try and meet with all different groups and ensure that everyone's involved and has the opportunity to comment on the plan.
Thanks very much. Councillor Ray, you have a question.
Thanks, Chair. The handy. So it kind of links to that last question actually about consultation and different ways that we can reach people. One example where the council did very well and it's been recognised as a good model was the interactive budget simulator that we had for setting that process last year. I wonder if there's any scope where we could have some form of interactive tool for people where, I don't know if it's a map and they can identify a plot and it can say, well, this could either be employment for this many people or it could be housing for this many people, and people could work their way through and identify these things. I don't know how it could be done, but is there any scope to look at some form of interactive thing rather than necessarily word-based and questions and people having to write, which is mostly what they've got to do, something where they can click and it's visual and people can interact in that way?
That's what we're definitely trying to do more this time, and use technology. So since the last local plan, there's definitely been improvements in how we can embed maps into the website and things like that. So they can be more interactive to look at maps. And we have already set up the Call for Sites exercise that we're currently taking, that will run alongside the local plan, is asking for the developers and landowners to suggest land they'd like to see included in the new version of the local plan. And it's an online form, and there's a map in there, and you can go in and click and zoom in and plot your site. And we're doing the same for the local green spaces. So these are areas where it's normally parish councils, but local communities can suggest sites that they think are of particular importance to protect as green spaces in their community. There's certain requirements they must meet, but there's a form to submit those, and on that form it already shows the ones that are already designated through the local plan or through neighbourhood plans as well. So people can go in and look, and it's more involved like that. And as I mentioned, we've got a social media campaign, so we've got a short video, and we're sort of basing that around the final question of the issues and options document, which is people's priorities. And we're looking at ways to incorporate that into like an online poll. So we're going to have that as just, rather than having to answer all the questions, you can just go to the last question, which is asking, what do you think are the most important priorities for Peterborough? And people can vote, and that goes straight online and things like that as well. So there are different techniques we're trying to incorporate this time.
Thanks very much. Are there any other questions, members? No? Yes, Councillor Tyler.
It's because David had pinched my mic. Yeah, in the ward that I represent, Gunthorpe, Warrington and Manor Drive, South Warrington and Manor Drive, there are 3, probably 4 Facebook pages. Now, you know, whatever your own personal viewpoint of Facebook is, it's a very useful tool. I use it for putting out information to people. I don't use it politically, but there are 14,000 people on the collective of the 4. And we also all do Facebook newsletters throughout the year. But I've never once been approached by anybody from the council saying, can you help us support with this, whatever the programme is that wants supported. And we know people, we are those people that can reach the hard to reach people. So why are we not doing more together?
We will ask, we're sort of looking to do to parish councils so they can put things on their their local website, Facebook group, and they've got notice boards and things like that to promote things. We always ask those, and other community groups, but that obviously relies on them then putting the message out there. And we will let all councillors know when the consultation launches, and there'll be links to the video and information that you could perhaps then use to share online as well. If you want to try and help as much as you can to spread the message out to different people, that would be really helpful.
Thank you very much. If there are no other questions, turn to the recommendations on page 69. And it's recommended that the Cabinet approves the draft issues and option version of the local plan for public consultation in July, August and September 2023, which is included at Appendix 1. It also delegates authority to the Executive Director for Place and Economy to make minor, inconsequential amendments to the draft issues and option version of the local plan. I think just have a look around the room. Members, are you agreed? You're agreed. That's marvellous. I think it's so important, and I think it's been illustrated this morning, it's so important that population of Peterborough gets involved in this new local plan consultation. We really need to hear people's views, because come what may, the city will grow. Growth is going to be the key to our city's development. So it's a matter of where we are going to fit these that most suit people. So 1,000 homes a year is the sort of aspiration that we have, and very often we achieve that, and sometimes more than that. So these houses are going to have to go somewhere, and we really want to hear from the residents about where they think those should go. Equally important for looking after our green spaces and for developing areas where industry and employment and economic activity can take place. So it's an extremely serious start to a consultation on the local plan. And I'd recommend as many people as can, please participate and send us your comments. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gemma. Shall we move on to item 7, which is the digital strategy? Give a chance for the officers to come forward. So this is pages 137 to 242 of the pack, agenda item 7. Cabinet member introducing will be Councillor Sainsbury. And the director responsible, Cecilia Booth, and the officers who will be introducing will be Sam Smith and Julian Patmore. Very nice to see you. Thank you very much for coming. Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Chair. This digital strategy seeks to set out the driver's vision and plans for services over the next 5 years for Peterborough City Council. The previous strategy, agreed in 2019, focused on rationalising, centralising and standardising IT and digital services for Peterborough City and Cambridgeshire County Councils, which supported the Shared Services Programme. Post-pandemic and in the context of national, regional and local changes and challenges, the Council requires a fresh digital strategy that supports the vision and ambitions of the Council. Nationally, there is increased focus on digital, including improved use of data and emerging technology such as artificial intelligence. As the UK Digital Strategy states, digital technology has transformed our lives and will continue to do so. The UK's economic future, jobs, wage levels, prosperity, national security, cost of living, productivity, ability to compete globally and our geopolitical standing in the world are all reliant on continued and growing success in digital technology. This economic growth requires an increase in digital skills, digital literacy, and enhanced technical skills alongside strong digital infrastructure. This is echoed both regionally and locally. This digital strategy, supported by separate data, technology and cyber strategies, is part of the Sustainable Future City Council and supports the delivery of the priorities within the corporate strategic framework. Members will be aware that this strategy has gone through CLT and CPF prior to today's meeting, which I think has really helped to ensure it is a wide-reaching strategy. I would like to put on record my thanks to all officers involved in developing this strategy, and in particular my thanks to Sam Smith for all the hard work she has carried out on this and many other projects for the Council. Today is Sam's last day with the authority as she is leaving to take up an exciting opportunity elsewhere, and I know we all wish her well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sainsbury. And Sam, it's sad to hear you're going, but so good that you're here on your last day to take any questions. Members, are there any questions of the officers? Councillor Simons.
Yeah, thank you. I know there's a lot of work gone into this item. Yeah, it's complicated. The documents are very complicated. How do you think we can make it easier for everybody to understand this?
I think that's an excellent question, and I think that the simplicity actually comes down to what it is that you want to achieve. So the digital strategy is in its essence, it's tried to be collective, it's tried to look at the whole picture, but actually if there are specific aspirations that are important to your portfolio, to your members, to particular services, then it comes down to the focus then becomes down to those things. There was mentioned in an earlier item of the need to build lots of homes. It's how from a strategic point of view can digital help with that? How can it help with connectivity to those homes? If you look at it, it's essentially look at it through the lens that you need to look at it through, and then the complexity, the technical complexity will be something that we can deal with, but then it's about what it needs to achieve. So it comes down to what does it need to achieve, try to encapsulate with the strategy, and then the opinions be about enabling that delivery.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tyler, you had a question?
Thank you, Chair. I've only met you today, but goodbye. Thank you for everything you've done. There are many apps and programmes designed to help and support disabled people and older residents. Unfortunately, many are not fit for purpose, and the more cynical users express the view that quite a lot of the time it's just a box ticked and that's done with. AI and technology will become an ever-increasing lifeline for many people, especially older and disabled people and carers. How will digital services be stress tested to give better access for all?
Thank you for the question. I think that absolutely the role that digital has to play in supporting disabled people is really important. Actually, there are things. One of them is partnership work. There's also an entire theme around inclusion. That everything we do from the council's perspective, done digitally, is as wide reaching as possible to support. As you're saying, we don't, as a council, we're not going to be able to define what the Amazons of the world do, but we can make sure that the services that are provided by us and for us are with some of the suppliers. So an example would be Microsoft. They are a global company. They actually do have a lot of tools to help. We need to look to improve them.
Yes.
Historically, and I've worked within the council for probably 15 years, sector, but within the council, it's very much been a case of talk to the corporate. Then if we get chance, people reach chance with the service and find what they need rather.
Again, thank you for the question. So one of the things that from a service, so we want to make sure closely with the services. Look at any area here. It's being done there is around the communities, around the co-production of services with the community and with the users in the community. And work well for people. We need to find out what they want. So the services that are doing that work.
Councillor Suresti.
Hello. It's changed so that it makes me feel like a dinosaur. How are you going to, or how is the department going to try and put as much future proofing in here as possible so we have to do it again next year?
If it's okay to talk at that point, if that's please.
So you're absolutely right. Technology is evolving at a rapid pace. Around AI and the likes of what's called in the press and the progress.
The overall this to make services well online, and I think a lot well. I think a large group that's going to benefit from that are perhaps the older population of those that are less able to use technology and they're not able to go online. And the question is about how we communicate that for people. They can get the same service by following some of the stuff online as they could if they're phoning in or waiting. A real world example is
Again, excellent question. So one of the initiatives that's going on in Adrian is looking at how the population can be almost subdivided into some areas, so that you've got the people who can go online and are happy to do so, you've got the people who can't, and then we need to tackle what we do with those, and the people that won't, because as you say, they feel more comfortable speaking to someone. So it starts about understanding where people are coming from and working with the services who are contacting those people and who have the most direct communication mechanisms, because as an IT and digital service, it's not going to be particularly valuable if we try to contact those people. We need the communications to come through the source that they would trust and have the most contact with. So that means working with the services and supporting and enabling them in whatever they need in order to be able to achieve it.
Thank you. Councillor Moyo.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for such a comprehensive report. I'm interested in the education piece. I'm sure you understand that members in this room handle an awful lot of personal data, and sometimes it falls under the special category. Special personal data, you have residents disclosing a lot of the time very, very sensitive information. via email or over the phone. I just wanted to understand what sort of support, or are they plans to sort of improve the education piece for members, I think, as well as officers. I've been working with the head of information governance and the DPO here in the council, and I suggested a few things in relation to making training more engaging, because at the moment I believe we've just been sent some slides, and personally I don't think that's interactive and comprehensive enough, considering the sort of data that we handle as councillors, and just how important it is, as we understand, as legislation reforms and changes over time. And so it's just wanting to make sure, will there be more support in the future for councillors to understand more information about how to handle personal data and how to essentially contribute to helping prevent cyber attacks?
So I'm probably going to ask Julian to pick this up, mainly because I know it's an area that he's very experienced in, but also very passionate about. So if it's okay, I'll ask Julian to pick that up.
Yes, thank you very much. Really good question, and something really hard to my heart at the moment. As you see, within the overall strategy, there is a complete strategy on its own around cybersecurity that we need to adopt and we need to adhere to and move that forward. In terms of the training, there's two elements to your question. One is around the information governance aspect, and you're already engaged with Ben, who's the DPO for the council, which is great. He can support and aid that. In terms of the training that we can then support in terms of the technology pieces, how we make sure data is secure, then we have a raft of initiatives that will be coming through in the course of the strategy around training and awareness. Feedback you're giving there around how do we get people more engaged, really, really critical, and that's part of the feedback that we want back as part of the overall service that we deliver around how we get that engagement with people, because you're right, people aren't engaged and they're not going to follow through on the actions, those positive actions they need to do to make sure actually we are secure and safe with our data and our cyber security. So I'll take that one back as to how we can engage better, but absolutely, there are interactive sessions. So one thing we did recently with CLT was we had Cyber Griffin come in to do a session with us around cybersecurity. It was a really good, engaging, active session where people could basically work through a sort of a game, if you like, that involved cybersecurity, and it brought that awareness closer to home to those members of CLT to understand the problem better. And I think by going down courses and actions like that, that will help with that engagement.
And I would add, I think, I absolutely agree. I think interactivity is the key, and that means that then we would look to members to have the engagement to make sure that actually that when there is something to do, that you are engaged and that you are passionate about it, because you are absolutely right. It's about the data of the residents and the citizens of the area.
Any more questions, members? Interesting part of my portfolio, which I'm struggling to be really on top of it. Thankfully, I've got Councillor Sainsbury to look after it, and that's great that he's been involved for more than a year now, I think, isn't it, Councillor Sainsbury? Of course, my point is very much on the financial side and the challenges we have. As we know from the past, the history of IT is that we're always switching around, we're trying to save money, but there's always a load of expense that's built into the process, and trying to come up with a more economic process is one that we have to do. And I'm particularly keen to make sure that when we use systems, we don't have anything bespoke. And there's a certain area, of course, within children's and adults where there are two packages that are competing companies that we use. And it seems to me it might be logical over time to try to reduce the amount of exposure that we have to different costs. And if we can get more and more aligned, then that would be better. But I'm just wondering, as far as the strategy goes, you're looking as far ahead as you possibly can. But how is redundancy built into this? How soon are you going to think it's going to have to be thought of again because of the speed by which IT changes?
excellent points, particularly around the finances and calling out the areas where there's further opportunities for system alignment. A lot of that work has been done around many systems, but there's more to do. In terms of the timeline of the strategy, one of the reasons that we've written it as a 5-year strategy, and as Julian referred to, we've tried to make the technology piece in particular quite open, so that we don't then need to come back and revisit the entire strategy. But we've also been very clear that delivery will be through projects and programs structured. There'll be absolute clarity in terms of when there's an initiative, how it will be delivered and how it will be funded and how it will be measured. But also we've said very clearly that anything in here will need to go through the MTFS process. So it will need to go through planning. So what we've essentially tried to deliver is a strategy that will be fit for the council for the next few years, but that the mechanics of it, the detail of it, and making sure that everything that's done of it is relevant, applies to the different services, meets the objectives, and is also financially sustainable, goes through the detailed planning underneath.
Thank you very much. It's a huge piece of work, and congratulations on the production of it. And I think I'll have to have another slow read to make sure I can pick up on all the level of detail that's there. So members, we're called to the recommendations on page 137 of the agenda. It is recommended that the Cabinet approves the Council's digital strategy and the related data, technology and cyber strategies. Are we agreed? We're agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming, and all the best. And it's a strange last day, isn't it, to sit here and be challenged on your report, but thank you very much, Sam. And thank you, Julian. Bye-bye. Shall we now move to item 8, which is the disposal of Peters Court, the Eco Innovation Business Centre. That's pages 243 to 254 of your agenda pack. And I think Cecilia Booth is here, and Simon Lewis is the officer. If you'd like to come forward, thank you very much. So it's my turn to introduce this particular item. Peterborough City Council own close to 2,000 land and property assets, which are under constant review. When determining the approach for the disposal of an asset, consideration is given to the property's performance, its condition, the demand, and the annual costs. Selling council land or buildings is something we consider carefully before it's proposed. Assets can, of course, only be sold once. And the demands of a growing city means we must safeguard our assets wherever necessary to ensure we can provide homes, employment and services to our residents. In September 2022, Cabinet agreed to a disposal plan to sell assets as part of a strategy to support the budget requirements over the next few years. Peters Court, which is a city centre serviced office premises, and following suitable property review, was identified as an asset for disposal. Following an extensive and suitable marketing campaign through a local agent, Peters Court has received an appropriate offer from a local purchaser. The purchaser will be able to invest as required to benefit this iconic property of historic significance to continue to benefit the city. Members will know that there's an exempt appendix which is attached to this particular report. Do we agree to exclude the press and public? We will have to do that at that stage. So I'm just take a poll of members now. Do you think we need to look at the exempt appendix on this particular item where we might need to exclude the press and the public? That's a no. Okay, so we can then continue directly to that questioning of the officer. And Simon, thank you very much for coming here to answer those questions. Are there any questions from members? Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Chair. It's just on the CCTV service. I'm just wondering if you're able to confirm where the service will be relocating to yet?
It's subject to agreement, but we're proposing to move them to San Martin House.
Members, any other questions? Councillor Ishfaq Hussain.
Sorry, on the plan, I just wanted to confirm it is just for the building, and because it's the building that's outlined in the plan, not the car park. So just want to confirm that the sale is for the building and not the car park.
We have a right to use a number of spaces in the car park, so it's the building that's being sold with the right to the car parking spaces. Any
other questions, members? I think we know this, the number of properties that are likely for disposal will continue, and there is a list further on in the paperwork. So we know we're going through the process now of realising the money to support the council's budget. So the recommendations for this particular item is on page 243. It's recommended that the Cabinet approve the disposal of the freehold interest of Peters Court Eco Innovation Centre in the terms set out in the report and in the exempt Appendix 1, and the grant of necessary rights for the area of land shown on the attached title plan, and to delegate authority to the Executive Director of Corporate Services and Director of Law and Governance, in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Legal, Finance and Corporate Services, which is me, to take all necessary steps to facilitate the decision in Recommendation 1, including approving the final terms of the disposal and entering into any necessary agreements. And finally, item 3 is to note that the CCTV service, which is currently located in Peters Court Eco Innovation Centre, will be relocated to an alternative council-owned property prior to the completion of the sale. Members, are you agreed with these recommendations? Agreed. Thank you very much. Shall we now move on to item 9? This is the disposal of the former TK Maxx and New Look building, 62 to 68 Bridge Street, pages 255 to 262. And we have Nick Carter here to answer any questions. I think I shall introduce this one, and Councillor Suresti, if you have anything to pitch into, then please do. This report relates to the disposal of 62 to 68 Bridge Street, formerly the Woolworths building, and more recently home to TK Maxx. The building was acquired by the Council in August 2020 using grant finance from the Towns Fund and had been intended to accommodate the Vine project, which forms one of the 8 projects in the Towns Fund programme. We now know that the refurbishment of the building is no longer economically viable, and therefore alternative locations have been identified to deliver the Vine project in its entirety within the project's fixed budget. The building is therefore surplus to requirements and is currently unoccupied. There is grant funding tied up in the building that needs to be recovered and redistributed into the Towns Fund programme. And a developer has made an offer to acquire the building for future development. It is therefore recommended that Cabinet approves delegated authority to officers and the relevant Cabinet members so that negotiations for the disposal can be finalised and the sale completed. Members, do you have any questions on this particular item? Councillor Simons.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I support this disposal. I haven't got a problem with disposal. Can we be assured that the Vine project will definitely happen in the Central Library, please?
Thanks for your question, Councillor. Yes, we are going ahead with the Central Library and another location in the city centre, which is commercially sensitive at the moment. Consultation has commenced with the library service, and we are currently putting together a procurement exercise to procure the works to the library as well, which have been specified.
Councillor Over, please.
Thank you, Chair. Is it likely that anybody would actually want to buy the site and building?
Are we talking about the Bridge Street site? Is it likely? Yeah. Well, we have a developer that is very, very keen to develop in that location. We've seen a number of proposals for that site, but there's nothing that's firm at the moment. And the offer that's been received is obviously unconditional on planning, so they'd have to go through a planning exercise in order to develop the site. But I think that's quite a good position for the council to be in.
Are we selling it at a discount? Because are we getting value for money?
We're selling it for more than we purchased it for.
Thank you very much. And members will know that there is an appendix on this particular item as well. And before I take your question, Councillor Tyler, just bear in mind, does anybody wish to refer to anything within the exempt appendix in this particular item? No, that's okay. That's fine. Councillor Tyler, would you like to ask a question?
Thank you, Chair. That side of town is very difficult for people with mobility problems and other disabilities to get to. And I just wondered how this new development will include people with disabilities, parking, accessibility and everything else. Will that be taken into account? Will local disabled people be involved and consulted?
Thank you for your question. It's a difficult question to answer at the moment because we're at a very early proposal stage, so we haven't really seen a firm proposal for what's going to happen on the site. But of course, all of those areas will need to be taken into consideration, and it will need to go through a planning process as well, so necessary consultations will need to take place, and any new building would have to be DDA compliant anyway, I would have thought, as well, in terms of legal requirements.
Thanks very much. Councillor Thresti, did you have any comments on this particular item? Councillor Ray.
Thank you. And just to confirm, because I'm at risk of thinking that we got some cake from government to pay for this building from the town fund, and now we might actually get to eat it as well. Is it right that we've received this funding from the town's fund? We're now selling the building because it's not required, and while some of it is to be reinvested for other projects for the town's fund, that money's coming to the council, and we're going to be able to benefit it for all residents. Is that right? It can't be right, surely.
It's a very good question. Thank you very much. Yes, all of that money will be recycled into the town's fund. Hence, we need to move on this proposal quite quickly because it is time limited in terms of our dates for spending town's fund money. So we'd like to do this relatively quickly if we can. And there are a number of projects in the town's fund that would benefit greatly from having this money recycled to them as well. And that will, of course, go through an equitable process through the town's fund board.
Just to follow, obviously, the profit, if you like, for where we are, if that's agreed and put through, would that also go into town's fund, or would that be used for other bits? Because obviously it didn't come from town's fund, but it's the surplus from it.
There are ongoing discussions with DLUC about how we deal with any profit that comes from the building, and discussions with our finance people as well for how we deal with that. It's an unusual situation, I think, for DLUC to be in, but they are supportive because obviously they're getting the delivery of the town's fund project and would like us to make sure that we use all of the funding. But yeah, we're in consultation with them to see how that works.
Thank you very much. Members, any other questions? If that's it, it's recommended on page 255 that the Cabinet approves the disposal of the former TK Maxx and New Look building at 62 to 68 Bridge Street and delegates authority to the Executive Director for Place and Economy in consultation with the Executive Director of Corporate Services, the Director of Law and Governance, and me, to take all necessary steps to facilitate the decision in Recommendation 1, including approving the final terms of acquisition and entering into any necessary arrangements. Members, are we agreed with this proposal? Agreed? Thank you very much. Thank you. Shall we move now on to item 10, the acquisition of homes on pages 263 to 270 of the pack. Simon Lewis, are you up front for this one? Thank you very much. So, Peterborough City Council is committed to fostering unity, understanding and compassion within our diverse community. And we proudly support and continue to support refugees integrating into the local area. A significant element of the support relates to the housing of refugees, with many individuals and families located in temporary leased accommodation, which unfortunately does not also provide the desired security for those in occupation. The grant funding that the Council has secured is through the Local Authority Housing Fund. The fund aims to alleviate housing pressures on local authorities arising from recent and unforeseen conflicts in both Afghanistan and Ukraine, and to support councils which have generously welcomed a substantial number of refugees from these areas. As part of the continued work to support refugees and for them to integrate into the city, the Council now has an opportunity to acquire properties as permanent residence to a number of refugee families. Members, you'll know, again on this item, there is an exempt appendix. Does anyone wish to refer to that when we might need to go into private session, or are you happy to go ahead in public session? In public session, that's marvellous, thank you. Any questions on item 10, please? Councillor Ray.
Thank you. Microphone's getting its use today. So again, just similar to my last question on the last item, actually, we're receiving funding from an external body to provide this facility for people. If it comes to a point where the refugees that are in residence decide to move out, are those properties then restricted that it must be used for refugee purpose, or is that something that is down to the council to allocate based on demand and stuff, should such a time arise?
I think in the first instance they're ring-fenced for the refugee purpose. Years down the line, I can't answer that question. That may change if there are no further demand, but I suspect there'll be demand for quite a while yet.
Cecilia Booth, you have a comment to make?
Yes, just to add to what Simon has just said, we are taking some external advice at the moment to look into that and the HRA implications, and whether the tenancies will become secure tenancies that will then trigger right to buy rights for those properties. It's a bit of a grey area, so we need some proper advice on it, which should be forthcoming within the next 3 weeks or so.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Councillor Hussain?
Thank you, Chair. When this was first put out in the local press, there's been a lot of comments by residents and people who are also finding it very difficult locally, saying that we should be doing more for our own residents in Peterborough first. So is it something that you can clarify? This isn't council money, this is actually money being given to us by the government for refugees rather than for, residents?
It's grant money, but it's only partially grant funded. We have to find some of the money ourselves. But I do know, colleagues in housing aren't here, so I struggle to speak for them. But I know there are other plans in place to increase the number of homes that we're able to provide as a council. So be through leasing additional properties and also acquiring other properties. So this isn't the only thing we're doing. We are looking to support our own residents as well, as much as we can.
Thanks very much. If there are no other questions, I'd like to move to recommendations on page 263. It's recommended that the Cabinet approves the acquisition of 25 houses. The full details of the individual properties will be developed as the acquisitions progress in due course, as set out in the exempt Appendix 1 for ownership by the Council to support the Refugee Resettlement Programme. And recommendation 2 is to delegate the authority to the Executive Director of Corporate Services, the Director of Law and Governance, in consultation with me, to take all necessary steps to facilitate the decision in recommendation 1, including approving the final terms of each acquisition and entering into any necessary agreements. Members, are we all agreed? We're agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Simon. Shall we now move on to monitoring items, item 11, which is the medium-term financial strategy 2024 to 2027, quarter 1 update, which you'll find on pages 271 to 288 of the agenda pack. And Cecilia, I guess it's you and me. It's the dual. So the report before us this morning provides Cabinet with our first quarterly MTFS update of the year. You will have noticed that the predicted budget gaps for the next 2 years have widened from what we forecast originally in February. At that stage, we were predicting budget gaps of between £500,000 in 24-25 and £1.1 million in 25-26. Our updated financial modelling is now forecasting budget gaps of £5.1 million in 2024-25, 6.1 million in 2025-26, rising to 10.5 million in 2026-27. The main reason for this change is what we are seeing, a surge in demand for services in some areas, particularly in children's social care. We're also still being impacted by high rates of inflation, pushing up the cost of services. And lastly, there is a cost pressure on the horizon from the National Pay Awards, which are yet to be agreed. I should add that at this stage, these are just predictions, so the budget pressures could come down, but equally, they could increase. As noted within the report, the Officers, Cabinet and the Financial Sustainability Working Group are to develop strategies to mitigate any rising pressures, in addition to developing savings and transformation plans. With the 4 newly established officer-led priority boards driving the delivery of key transformation projects, these will be key to enabling us to meet the aims outlined in our city priorities, including financial sustainability. So members, do you have any questions of Cecilia or of myself on this particular item? Councillor Seresti, please.
Thank you, Chair. Inflation. What assumptions are you making about inflation?
So the key assumptions are shown on page 277, and we use the Bank of England forecast, which may or may not be accurate. Forecast. Yeah, it is a forecast. It's only a forecast.
Yeah.
So for 24-25, we're looking at 7%. For 25-26, we're looking at 2.9%, and 1% for 26-27. The reason we are updating the MTFS quarterly is that we will update these figures as we go along. So who knows what the inflation is going to be 3 years into the future. But to give some credibility to our assumptions, we use the official forecast.
That's the one thing that worries me, Chairman, is that I'm not sure that the Bank of England's forecasts are going to be right.
Yes, thank you. I think we've seen press recently has been really quite speculative in terms of what interest rates will be. So all you can do is to make the best guess, which is obviously going to be prudent. I love that word, prudent, one of my favourite words when it comes to dealing with financial matters. Any other questions? Councillor Simons.
Yeah, it's concerning the budget results, just like obviously relate. My only real worry is core services, and I think it's so important that we keep the city clean, and make sure we deliver on core services. So how do you plan to get this back in line, really, to be honest?
So yes, I agree. We need to look very carefully at core services. We're starting the detailed budget setting probably tomorrow. We're looking at cash limits and aligning the budgets to our priorities. Looking at the budget gaps we have now, £5 and £6 million. I think we need to look at some big issues. In the last couple of years, we have just chipped away at the edges and tinkered with the budget. Really, I think we need to look at some big items now, and those haven't come forward yet. But during the course of the detailed budget setting, I'm expecting executive directors and budget holders to come forward with some changes that we can present to members in due course.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's important. Non-statutory items, we don't keep attacking them, and look at the statutory items very closely. Personally, thank you.
Councillor,
can I just come back on that? And I think it's very, very difficult to differentiate between statutory and non-statutory services, because when you look into the detail, a lot of the statutory services have got big elements of non-statutory support around them. So we will look at the big picture and not just chip away at things.
Thanks very much. Councillor Ray.
Thank you very much, Chair. So while I appreciate this is looking at the years ahead and where our budget gaps may be for those years, I think an important thing is any slippage that we'd have this year will then obviously have a negative impact on future years. So can you give us some reassurance, and for anyone that's watching, that we're still on track for this year's budget that's obviously already been set, but that we're still going to be able to deliver, and the same pressures aren't going to affect what we've already predicted for this year?
So the Q1 BCR will come to members shortly. We're working on that now, and I think I can flag up right now that we got some big in-year pressures this year, all in children's services really. The other areas, I think we got plans, so we got everything in hand. But I think John has got a challenging agenda for the current financial year, and that is a concern that we're looking to mitigate ongoing.
Any other questions from members? We've gone over the hour, which I'm very disappointed. My first time to chair Cabinet, I've actually gone over, but maybe that's a good thing that we're actually having questions answered and so on. It's recommended that the Cabinet consider and note the revised financial assumptions included within this medium-term financial strategy 2024 to 2027, Q1 update, and 2, to approve the revised disposal plan. Members, are we agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry to have kept you nearly 6 minutes late. I shall close the meeting. Thank you very much, members. Thank you, officers.